Welcome back to the Steel City Roundtable, folks. You know who I am. I am the knucklehead alcoholic who wants to try to help everybody not be the knucklehead alcoholic. I got a really great guest today, a gentleman I met on social media. It's when the algorithm works and puts two people that have like-minded ideas together. His name is Jeff Jones, and he is part of the Family Recovery Solution. Jeff, say hi to everybody.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on here, Mark.
Definitely, brother. Why don't you let people know who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So my name's Jeff, and I was a therapist in Colorado for a number of decades. I no longer live in Colorado. I'm no longer doing therapy, working under the state of Colorado's program. I'm doing coaching, which allows me a lot more freedom to um, r- really say what I want to say and how I can best help people and not be working under, the state regulatory agency. And my whole platform here is to focus on families who have a family member who's still in active addiction. So the family can really understand like this larger picture of what's going on. And once they see this larger picture, it's easier for them to understand why and how they can make change that influences the whole family system and influences their relationship with their addicted family member.
Well, that's a pretty cool topic to me because, me being a recovering alcoholic with mental health issues, my friends and my family didn't know where I was at mentally and what I was doing with my life because I was ashamed to tell them. I didn't think they would understand. And what you're saying
Right.
is you work with the families and the friends of the person in active addiction to help that person better themselves.
Yeah, it's a transformational program for, I start with one person in the family, and it's a transformation for them. And the normal dynamic in families is they see their addicted loved one down here. My hands are kind of together, and they're like myopically focused on their loved one who's doing things over and over that's putting them in harm's way. And so this myopic focus is reinforced by a number of different things that are happening in the culture that trickles down into families. Families end up taking things personal. Their nervous system gets activated, and when their nervous system gets activated, they're going to stay myopically focused on what seems dangerous. And what seems dangerous is they're scared for their loved one's well being. Like, holy shit, this person could die, and I don't want them to die. So this is normal, and the traditional, as I see it, traditional recovery reinforces this narrow focus. So what I do is to help them, understand that there's truth, there's value here, but if they just stay myopically focused here, they're going to end up doing the same thing over and over again. They're going to get labeled by our system of care that they're just all a bunch of codependents and enablers. I don't really see it that way. So the program that I have helps family members see out here so that this larger picture can inform this and this can inform this. And it's like both and thinking, to where the family member and the whole family can come up with their best decisions moment by moment. So I have a 9-month program that starts with that one person in the family. Eventually, it can include other people. Eventually, it can include that one person who's been in active addiction if they're curious about a new perspective of addiction recovery. So I've said a whole bunch of stuff, Mark. You feel free to ask me questions, or I can keep blithering along.
Okay, so I am not the smartest man in the room ever. Okay, my wife will confirm this. I am usually the dumbass that's making fart jokes in the room side of the room. So, to me, it sounds like what you're doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you are taking a negatively focused view of addiction and recovery, and you are trying to give a more rounded view of the other aspects that are involved other than just focusing on the negative. Showing people that by, working together, by reinforcing, by, being there and understanding what the person is going through, they can build a healthier environment for recovery. And they can also understand that person's struggles. Am I right?
Well, whether they can understand the struggles or not, I'm not really sure.
But like on a fundamental level, like they
Yeah,
learn more about what an addictive person goes through.
on a conceptual level, yeah. And why that conceptual level is important is that there's this natural tendency, and I really have seen how our system of care, you know, enables the problem of this myopic focus. And family members, generally, they don't really get help until their loved one goes into a treatment center that has a family program. Now, of course, there's things like Al Anon that offers some level of help.
Yeah, but
Um,
Al-Anon's based off of the 12 steps, so it's,
yeah,
do it
yeah,
this way or it doesn't work, I
yeah,
love AA, I love NA. I did AA, I still go. I don't go as
yeah.
much as I used to, but I like went to 100 meetings in 30 days when I came
Okay.
home. So
Yeah,
I trust the system, right? One of
yeah,
the problems with AA, in my personal opinion, is that people come into AA and they're scared of a couple things. One, they're scared that it's a faith-based program, right? People that
yeah.
don't believe in God or don't want to have to put their faith in a higher power, that's difficult. The other thing is that, oh, I don't want to be in a room with a bunch of drunks telling me how to live my life. It's and I mean, listen,
Yeah,
that's how I
yeah,
was. That's how I
yeah,
was when I started. I was like, I'm not going to listen to you, dude. You've been in here for fucking 25 years. You're still not sober. Like, why should I listen to you?
yeah.
Um, so AA can be difficult, and so
Oh,
Al-Anon can be difficult,
yeah.
you
There's
know?
there's there's no doubt about it. I mean, AA, in my opinion, and I have been to some AA meetings, and Mark, I just want to be transparent. I have, I don't know the 12 steps well.
Neither do I.
Um,
You don't have to know them. That's the great thing about AA,
I,
you don't have to know them.
I mean, I have a lot of friends that know the 12 steps well, and, um, you know, and so there's a lot of things that I like about AA. It's community. Like, people do not get away with bullshitting themselves or other people in AA. Hey, that's awesome. I love that. It's all over the world. I love that. There's some things that I really don't like about AA, and one is, and now I'm going to get into, you know, the bionutritional aspect of the healing program that I have. But, AA has sugar at meetings, caffeine, nicotine, all of those things continue the reward pathway. And, it's like, hey, I drink caffeine. Like, I'm not saying that because I'm holier than Val. I'm saying that because I have experience and I work with clients to where when they can, start to be set up with a deliberate daily life cycle that includes nutraceuticals, non toxic, non addictive substances as a first line of defense, as opposed to just pharmaceuticals, which are toxic and potentially addictive as a first line of defense, which I don't, I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. But when they can be set up with that kind of program, that kind of support, and actual real food, which is, it starts with food, quite frankly, and more of a mindset kind of thing that can support, like, the nutritional leg of a three-legged stool. The
Well,
other two.
let me interrupt you for a second because you're getting into something that I want to I want to see, I want to get to where you're coming from. So you say you don't like the fact that they have sugar and caffeine at AA meetings. Not that it's a bad thing, but you don't think it's something they should be there.
Well, it just continues inside the brain in the reward pathway. It continues the process. So like, hey, I no longer drink alcohol, but now I do this other thing. I eat a shitload of sugar, I do porn, I do whatever, you
Well,
know.
we know that one of the big things about alcoholics is once they get sober, they crave sugar because sugar is what alcohol turns into in your system. So you're used to having that sugar rush all the time. So here, if you ask me why, and you didn't, but I'm going to tell you anyway, the reason why coffee and sugar are good in this case is because AA, when you first start, is a forced, uncomfortable situation.
Right. Yeah.
You need some type of comfort level, right?
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
You need to feel safe, you need to feel at home. So the
Yeah.
coffee and the donuts and the cakes and whatever, that's a way to let you know that you're welcome, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
let you know that you're part of something. Like when you walk in the door, you look to the left, there's coffee, there's donuts, you're like, shit, I'm
Yeah.
nervous, I'm crapping my pants, I think I wet myself in the car. And then you go over there and you have a
Yeah.
donut, you have a cup of coffee, and you start to calm down. Now I
Yeah.
agree with you over time. Over time, that becomes an issue.
Yes.
I mean, listen,
It's
I'm a pretty fit guy, right? Like I'm 215, 6'3", you know,
yeah.
but ask me what I ate after I had dinner. Cake, cookies,
Right.
candy. Like
Yeah.
I still
Yeah.
2 years later
So
am addicted to sugar.
I mean, Mark, I'm right now I'm staying at a friend's house and she's a nutritionist and she's been in her own recovery for like 6 years. And so, she could talk about this more from being a nutritionist
I'll get her
standpoint.
number when we're done.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm happy to pass along her number, but I met her in a consultation group that I'm a part of, and it's the Academy for Mental Health and Addiction Nutrition. And there's like a couple hundred people in there, and there's nutritionists, there's doctors, there's therapists, there's different kind of healers, and there's people who they're just there for their own healing, and they've tried recovery over and over many different ways, in and out for years, and then they learned about real food and bionutritional healing. And I want to be really clear, I'm not saying this is a do all end all. I want to go back to that three-legged stool concept that before you interrupted me. The three-legged stool, the one the one leg is the bionutritional healing, the other leg is social support, biopsychosocial, and the third leg is spiritual. And so AA is masterful at those two legs. And in my opinion, and it's my opinion, the other leg and many treatment centers, you know, don't pay attention to this third leg. And I think that is like that's a disservice. I could go further
Yeah. I mean,
with my rant,
I
but
agree
you
with
get
you.
what I'm saying.
A lot of the recovery facilities that you go to, it's a carb heavy diet. It's a very carb heavy, it's sugar heavy diet because, you know, that not that I know of, there's not many places that are just for alcoholic recovery, right? They're alcoholic, they're addictive substances, they're mental health, dual diagnosis. I was a dual diagnosis, mental health and alcoholism. So they've had those meals for the people that are coming off drugs like opioids to help them gain weight. So, you're going to eat a lot of heavier foods at most rehabs because they want you to put weight on because they want, their substance abuse, the drug aspect of it. A
Yeah,
lot of those
yeah.
people were very, very skinny and not healthy. So they're trying to boost them back up because, like you said, you need to eat well in order to function properly. Your brain, there's a pathway between your stomach to your brain,
You got it.
and so these places, they feel that by fattening you up,
Right.
That's
Yeah.
gonna and
Yeah.
I think it works in the beginning, to give you that platform to go, this is step 1 of the 20-step process. Step 1 is
Sure.
just eat. You gotta
Yeah.
eat, you know?
So so can I interrupt you, Mark?
No.
Okay, then continue
No,
on and
interrupt
I'll
me all you
jump
want.
in.
That's what we do here.
Oh, okay. So my addiction nutrition mentor, one of the things she has said over and over is it's the brain's job to make good decisions gracefully, and it can't really do that job if it's not well fed. And so, real food and amino acids and balancing neurotransmitters that are out of balance, like that is not rocket science, but like they're trying to do that with pharmaceuticals. And I I think my judgment is it's profit over people. And having said that, pharmaceuticals can be very helpful. Pharmaceuticals saved my life in October of 23. And, I've been on the black and white side of alternative medicine. Like, I want to use that. And I was stubborn as hell when I had pneumonia. And, but when I went into a hospital, it's like it saved my life. And I was scared
Well, I
that,
mean, I'm medicated. Like, I take Lexapro and I take Visceral. Visceral is one of the oldest anxiety meds that they still prescribe because
okay,
it works, you
yeah,
know? And I fought that tooth and nail for probably the last 3 years because I was in therapy before I went to rehab.
yeah,
And my therapist was like, maybe you should look into taking some meds, go talk to a psychiatrist, get your doctor to. I'm like, I'm not taking them. I'm
yeah,
not taking them because to me, that's a
right.
failure of me to handle my own business. Right. But I tell you what, within a week of getting on the Visceral,
Yeah,
I was able to function at a level where I could function
awesome.
with
Yeah, yeah,
without being snapping all the time and losing my mind. So, I agree with you. It's big pharma. It's big pharma over health. Big pharma just doesn't give a shit. Like, listen, I don't know if you know much about the stuff that's out there now, but you've heard of probably peptide therapies and things like that they do now, like BPC 157. They have all these these chain amino acids, compounded amino acids that they're developing in laboratories
is
that they're
that for like bodybuilding?
well, it's not purely for bodybuilding. So like BPC 157 is like a joint health compound.
Okay,
It helps with healing of tendons, joints,
yeah, yeah,
sleep. They have stuff for like, listen, I do a lot of research because I'm really curious to see what this stuff. I can't wait till the FDA starts approving all this stuff because it's like they do things
that's not
for,
gonna happen.
well, like GLP-1,
Yeah,
semaglutide, tirzepatide, retatrutide. All three of those are GLP-1
okay,
modulators, and they're developed through these experiments on rats, right? And they're peptides,
right,
and glutide and those have become bigger because the insurance companies get money for them,
yeah, yeah,
right? That's something that's been approved to be safe in humans, so they can prescribe it. It has to go through a compounding pharmacy. You can't, you don't want to buy shit online. But
yeah,
you go through a compounding pharmacy, but there's all kinds of things out there for like growth hormone, for testosterone replacement therapy, other
yeah.
than
I
taking like Somorelin and Ipamorelin are two things that they can prescribe you, other than taking testosterone
Yeah.
because
So Mark, I want to interrupt and just say one, I don't really know a lot about the stuff you're talking about, but I do know a lot about using amino acids to balance brain chemicals that get out of balance, specifically with addiction. And, that work comes from the book, The Mood Cure by Julia Ross, which was one of the texts in the Academy for Mental Health and Addiction Nutrition. And so, there is a program that can be used. And actually, when I work with families that have a loved one who have like some mental health diagnosis, some addiction, what I recommend is that they have their loved one consult with a nutritional psychiatrist. Now, I know two of them, Dr. Hyla Cass and then Dr. James Greenblatt, and both of them are psychiatrists in the medical model first, and then they got into nutrition. They learned a lot about nutrition. So when they do a consult, they can actually come up with a whole protocol that includes some pharmaceuticals and some nutraceuticals and the whole food thing. And then they can take that protocol and, have someone else like myself, who has a background as a therapist, but I'm doing largely nutritional recovery life coaching, and I can work with that individual. And there's a couple hundred other people in the Academy for Mental Health and Addiction who they can work with people in early recovery and follow this nutritional psychiatrist protocol. So this is a collaboration. This is teamwork. This isn't about Jeff just kind of doing this cool thing by myself. No, I work with a number of different people. This is about teams of professionals kind of coming around families that want to make change and make multiple referrals.
Well, the reason why I brought up peptides is because it's a prime example of how big pharma works, how the FDA works. They've
Okay.
they've done testing on a lot of these peptides that have shown amazing results for, like, for example, BPC 157 with, like, tendons healing, uh, nagging injuries getting better, better
Oh,
sleep,
wow.
and things of this nature, right? So what the FDA does is, because they want to get their tax dollars, they want to get money off of that. What they do is they take it from category A, which is, can be prescribed, to
Yeah,
category B, needs more testing,
right.
because they're not getting their money off of it. But I'm long-winded as hell. But watch out for the peptide therapies in the future, folks.
Okay.
They're gonna be the next tier of medicine, because once the government can figure out how to make millions and millions and millions of dollars off of it, you'll be able to get prescribed this shit by the doctor. But that's my soapbox. I'm off it. We're back on here.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you. So you're
Okay.
talking about how this is not a myopic, but it's a kind of a consortium of different parts working together to help people get better. What do you think of interventions?
Well, I mean, I was an interventionist for a number of years. I was on an intervention team with internationally known interventionist that teaches all around the world. And I was the second chair in a number of interventions, and some of them were with her. And so I mean, and I was the secretary of Network of Independent Interventionists for a couple years, and this was, I don't know, 8 years ago or something like that. So I know a lot of good interventions. Intervention has saved people's lives. There's no doubt about it. The other side of intervention, and this isn't on the 9 o'clock news or anything like that, is that when that family member, feels like they're being pushed and assaulted and all of this stuff, and they say no, I'm not going into treatment. I mean, I've had friends who tell me a couple weeks later that person decides to end their life, because their family who, the family can people feel supported by their family when all kinds of other shit happen. Now, not always, of course, and we have to cut ties with family and all that kind of stuff, but it's like intervention doesn't just yield one result. There's a chance that it can save someone's life. There on the other end of the continuum, there's a chance that they won't go into treatment and they'll end their own life, or they'll go into treatment and they'll check themselves out, or you know after a couple days, and they'll do that over and over and over and over, And I've been involved in some of these over and over and over cases, and so that's why I refer to this like narrow focus, which I refer to as black and white thinking, which is like there's an impulse, I have a thought, I believe my own thinking, I think it's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And the reality is there is truth in that. However, there's truth out here too, and where one can inform the other. So it's like what I'm advocating for here for is both and thinking, which includes black and white thinking, but it's not limited.
Yeah. The reason why I ask about interventions is because you working with families of people in active addiction, you're basically working with the addiction community, the people, that community.
Yes, sir.
You cannot make an addicted mind do anything it doesn't want to do,
Yeah.
right? Like I think we
Yeah.
would both agree that nobody gets help until they're ready.
Yeah. And
Now,
I mean, I can say one little thing and then I want to go back, but sometimes you can get the addicted mind to do something it doesn't want to do, but not for very long.
yeah, because for me, an intervention is a forced, uncomfortable, unwilling situation for the addicted person.
Yes.
They had this TV shows, intervention, and it's just, if you would have put me in a room with all my friends and what's left of my family. Hey, Maisie, my dog just walked in the room, so, um, hi, Maisie, say hi to the camera. So if you would have put me in a room and said, "Hey, we think you have a problem," I'd have been like, "Go pound salt. Don't
Yeah.
call me. Leave me alone. This is stupid." Because I'm such a type A personality where I have to make my own decisions,
Right.
and now granted, I think there's portions of an intervention that are good, like, maybe calling somebody together, but not in such a formal situation saying, "Hey, listen, we're concerned about you." But
Yeah.
not 10 friends in a
Yeah. Yeah.
room with a facilitator. Like it would make me feel like I'm on trial, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
what are you gonna
So,
do as that addicted person in that scenario? Like, you're being compounded by every person in that room saying, "We're worried about you. We're worried about you. You're worried about you." And
yeah.
now you've started a thought train that could go to negative town or it could go to recovery town. You don't know. But it's a very risky situation,
Oh,
especially for someone who's on, hard drugs and like a lifelong addict. Like,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, the best case scenario concept about intervention, I think, is that the family can fill the whole room with so much love that it's just palatable. And, that's not always the case by any means. It's eh, the what I try to do with intervention is to put the family in control where they have the power to start changing their relationship with their loved one. And it's like when different people in the family start to make change and they have a unified family recovery message which they can customize to make it real but end in the same way, um, that those messages can get under addiction. Not always, but like family, the relationship is where family members have the most influence.
so here's a
And
question. I'm going to interrupt you again. Here's a question.
yeah, sure.
I mean, this is a conversation, right? So we're going to interrupt each other. What if there isn't like a negative connotation or a negative opinion, or what if there's not that stress coming from the family members and they have a healthy relationship? Like,
Right.
you're talking about taking one person in a family and making them see things on a bigger scale outside that myopic thought process, that black and white thinking.
Yeah, right.
What if
Right.
that's not there? What if they already have a good relationship? It's just this person is an addict
Right.
for other reasons. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the family. How is that actually going to help someone
Well,
if you're turning the family into
yeah.
changing their dynamic relationship with that person?
Yeah.
It's already a good relationship.
So that's I love that question. I love you pushing back on what I'm saying, you know, and what I can just talk from my own personal experience here. But what I've seen with families where they already had this good relationship, a lot of time the family members, specific if it's like a child, specifically like mom and dads, well, even more specifically moms, because moms never give up on their children, but moms can just get so depressed and they can blame themselves and like, holy cow, what did I do wrong here? And they can have it become their problem, and that's gets to be a big part of the whole problem. So my little example here, that I use with my hands, not every family dynamic relationship is the same. There's some general patterns, and there are some patterns that show up that aren't the norm. I what I'm here what I'm getting is that, you're talking about something I would consider is not the norm.
Yeah, the atypical. So so how do you approach a situation like that when the family has a healthy relationship with that person and, there is no like
Yeah,
negative dynamic and they're just concerned. They just want to help. How do
right,
you
right.
how do you address that? Because that's like
So,
batting 1,000 right there. Like that's what you want, ideally, right? You want that dynamic.
and that's such a good question. And one of the first things that I need to do in gathering information is find out, how have they been talking to their loved one? What was the communication like, or what is the communication like now? How does it go back and forth? And I need to hear that, like some backstory, and I need to hear what happens day to day. And essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start collaborating or brainstorming or guessing with the person how they can best change what they've been doing. Because what I've seen that is helpful is when the family member, when they start changing how they relate to their loved one, to where their loved one really notices, holy shit, something's different here. What's going on with mom here? You know, when the addicted individual picks up on, oh my God, my mom or my family member is doing something real different, like they're not following the normal script that the addicted individual is used to, and that's a place to start. Like there is no black and white answer to what you're asking me. It's a really good question, Mark.
Well, I mean,
Really
I
good.
think at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're basically running an investigation, like being a cop. You're gathering the people of interest, right? The family members. You're finding out what their behaviors are, what their activities are, why they're doing what they're doing, and then you're taking that and putting it into a giant paradigm and figuring out how can I put these pieces together so that they can
Yeah.
portray to the addicted person that they are doing things differently in order for that addicted person to see something different come out of them, even if it's good or bad, even
We're,
if they
we're,
already have that
yeah.
positive relationship.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of
And
crazy to me. That's like muckety muckety mud mud. You know what I mean? Like that seems very, very difficult to try to figure
well,
those things out.
you know, yeah, it is difficult, Mark. There's no doubt about it, and there's no guarantee. But here, like in that little video that I made at your request, you know, for years, every day, plus or minus 300 people die from overdose or an addiction related cause, and it's like, why is that acceptable? Like, why do we continue to do the same thing? And I just like, yeah, it's difficult, but people are dying every day. What's the answer? Just do the same damn thing over and over and over again. And if people want to do that and they feel empowered doing that, by all means,
Well, I
have
mean,
at it.
it's a very forward thinking approach. You know what I mean? This is way outside the box, right? This is outside the box of traditional recovery, right? Traditional recovery is medicate, isolate, re-educate, and release. I mean, that's what it is, right? Like you lock them up, You give them a plan, you break them down like the military does, you start them back up again, you give them a new set of tools, and you send them back out there on their own after they leave the bubble and go, "Good luck,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, what you're
What
doing is
I
this is like continuing education for the family.
Oh, it's huge amount of continuing education, but just the I really like your description of the process of what I would consider old school recovery, like break them down, then build them up kind of thing, and send them back out there. But when we send them back out there, like our culture, our society, the way things work, quote unquote, work, l- like there are so many different aspects of that reinforce the problem, that reinforce the addiction. And one of the beauties of AA is it's a safe place, you know, and and like our culture and going to work isn't always a safe place for a person in early recovery. And I'm sure I'm not telling you anything that you don't know.
I mean, one of the biggest problems you face coming out of a rehabilitation center or treatment is that you were in a safe bubble for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it was. For me, it was 47 days. I was in a safe,
Right,
nothing could touch me. I didn't have, I had to sign up to make a phone call if I wanted to make a phone call from like 6 to 8 at night for like 15 minutes. And I didn't want to talk to anybody because I was like ashamed of my behaviors and I wasn't proud that I was there, like all these emotions going through. But the
right.
thing is, once they cut you loose, it's literally like go find an IOP, an inpatient outpatient, and go to AA, do 90 and 90. For folks that don't know, that's 90 meetings in 90 days.
Yes.
And best of luck to you. Make sure
Yeah.
you pay your bill on time. I mean, that's what it is. I got very lucky. Unfortunately, that I went to a place called Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida. They since have closed their doors, which is very, very upsetting to me because I'm going to make a statement that I make all the time, and I believe it 100%, and that's that every addict has some type of mental health issue. Every single one. The
I
the
agree. Yeah.
addiction and the alcoholism and the substance abuse is just a symptom to draw attention to a much deeper problem. And when I went to transformations, they were like, "Don't worry about the drinking right now. Let's find out what's going on with you."
I
So
love that.
they dug in and diagnosed me with PTSD, depression, and anxiety, and gave me an area of focus, like you say, myopic. They gave me an area of focus,
Yeah.
something to
Yeah.
work, something to battle against because I'm a
Right.
confrontational person, right? I like
Yeah.
fighting. I like battles.
Yeah.
So you gave me something to attack when I was diagnosed. And
Yeah.
that was the biggest gift I ever could have gotten from that treatment center was the focus on my mental health first. So
Right.
with that long diatribe, like everything else I say, I think the biggest component of successful rehabilitation for an addict now has to be focused around two things: self-awareness, which is why do I do the things I do?
Yes.
And number two is what is going on mentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's figure out how you are mentally, whether you're mentally healthy or not. I
Yeah.
think without those two things, nobody stays sober.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those are
Yeah. So
the
I want to respond. I loved what you just said. And I mean, I want to ask the question, not now, but about that treatment
ask
center.
now. I'm an open book. I'll talk about anything.
Well, but first I want to say that I really see benefit with, like, here's the black and white thinking of addiction, and traditional recovery has its own black and white thinking to confront it. And that can be super helpful, but from the family member's perspective, it's a different deal, and this both and thinking, I really believe can be super helpful for family members to be able to go back and forth, because yeah, they need to understand what's down here and what their loved one is, you know maybe not completely dealing with, but that they have their own thought process and the family's not going to change it, you
Yeah.
know
I mean, you got to
but
dip your toes in the water to see if it's warm enough to get in. You know what I mean?
yeah, but the family's kind of perspective is going to be different.
Yes,
And
I agree.
this here, this larger picture helps them to understand like not just this, not just this myopic focus or this black and white thinking, but to understand out here two things can be true at the same time. And that's like the quote unquote definition of both and thinking. And black and white thinking does not go with that. There's only one thing true, and it's that impulsive thought. And, I don't want to get into an argument here, but black and white thinking is advantageous from some perspectives for some stages of healing. But for the family, if they're just stuck down here on this black and white thinking, the family's going to be going round and round on this
Well, I mean,
merry-go-round.
everything's subjective, right? Everything's different
Yes.
circumstances, different inputs,
And
different obstacles.
And like you said earlier, one of the first things is awareness, and the family needs to have its own awareness.
See, I don't, I, so like, I don't talk to my mother. My dad's dead. My stepdad's dead. I have a sister that I talk to. So like, literally there was no there was no family support for me. I didn't have any,
Right,
like,
right,
so for me, it was like, it came down to me making a decision on my own that
right,
something
right.
had to
Yeah,
change, and so let me put it this way. I am not arguing what you're doing.
yeah,
I am trying to understand from an
yeah.
addict's point of view how what you're doing could have helped me
And
prior
and
to prior to wanting to kill myself and getting sober,
yeah,
because I didn't have family. But like, it's a foreign idea for me to think that my family would give a shit.
yeah, yeah. And so what I want to say is the program that I have isn't for everybody. It isn't for every family. And just what you told me about your family, it obviously wouldn't have been for your family. And just how I know you and the way you express yourself, you know, you're very much like, I'm going to do this myself. I don't give a shit about anybody else. I'm going forward.
Yeah.
Like that's what I get for, and that's empowering.
For me, it's
And
I know if I ever drink again, I'm gonna kill myself. Like, it's just a fact.
yeah,
So, the only way for me to avoid eating a bullet is
right.
to not drink.
Yeah,
So, no matter how bad my days get, no matter how bad of a situation I'm in, like, I'll give you an example. We were talking about it before we got on camera. I had a business opportunity with a company, and everything was ready to go, documents signed, ready to do this thing, and then after that was signed, they go, "Hey, we need to vet any outside business interests you have." I was like, "Okay." I looked at my wife. No bullshit. I'll bring her up here. I told my wife, I said, "They're gonna use this to get rid of me." Because, you know, what I talk about is not, this is not Sunday morning conversation. You don't talk about
right.
this at Bob Evans when you're eating a steak breakfast. You're not talking about this shit. So what happened was I gave him the information. And of course, did I have to? No. But
Yeah.
I'm transparent as fuck now.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
care what
yeah.
you think about me. I don't care how you feel about me. Like, I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on because there's no point me. It's so much easier to live
That's
with the
your
truth.
integrity, Mark.
Well, it's so much easier to live with the truth than it is to fight
Yeah,
the lies. And I lied
right.
my entire life. So I don't do that shit anymore. But long story short, I gave them the information about the podcast. I told it was a motivational podcast for mental health and recovery. And I got a letter in an email, cut and paste letter, where they rescinded their offer because my podcast, quote unquote, didn't align with their internal policies. And when I asked for clarification, they said because my podcast is a publicly available podcast, it violates their social media policies. And then, of course, my response, being the calm, cool, collected person I am, was, well, let me ask you this then. So you're going to fire everybody that has social media? Because social media is a publicly available,
Right.
expressed form of
Yeah.
media. It's the same damn thing as a podcast. The only difference is I'm an addict.
Yeah. Well, how did they respond to your question?
They sent me a letter saying, that's where they said that it didn't conform. The publicly available podcast didn't conform to their policy. And then they said, "Oh, and we completely support the mental health community." They had a sentence at the bottom. I can look it up and tell you exactly what they said.
Uh,
They made sure to
but
put in there something about them supporting mental health.
but your question that I heard, I thought was a really good question. So, are you going to fire everyone in your company that has social media? Like,
I mean, don't worry. I'm going to do an episode on here. I'm going on the Marty Griffin show, which is a radio show here in Pittsburgh. I'm going to go and
uh-huh.
blast them on the radio. So I'm going to have fun with it. I'm going to eat
Yeah,
crow and suck it, is what I have to say.
yeah, yeah. Well, and yeah, it's always interesting the quote unquote policies that some large companies have and hold, and the way they see things. And yeah, they probably can't be totally transparent if it's like, "Oh my God, this guy Mark, he may have been an addict or something like that, and so he's at risk because that guy could relapse any moment and then would be
That's
liable."
exactly what
And
it is. That's exactly
yeah,
what it is. And the reason why I bring this up is because this is a gleaming example, like a gleaming of example of how the community of addicted souls
yeah,
is
yeah,
still held to a different standard.
yeah,
You are still looked at differently. You are still treated differently, whether you're in recovery or not. We will, in this
yeah,
country, I don't think we will ever get to a point where you and I meet at a job interview. You're interviewing me, and I can come out and say, "Listen, I'm a recovering alcoholic with 7 years sober. Thanks for the job." It's,
yeah,
I can't tell you
yeah.
because if I tell
Well,
you, you're going to hold it against me.
yeah, you're right about 90 some percent of the time. And I mean, my own experience with this is that I like people that I've known that have been in addiction and they've gotten themselves out. They are incredibly creative people. And a lot of people, a majority of people that I've known, and this is just anecdotal, like they get into addiction, like not black and white, but a part of it is the world just doesn't make sense. And, it's like the way things happen are just so convoluted, and, whether it doesn't make sense or they just hate it or they've been damaged by it or whatever, it's like going into addiction is a way to escape from all, the stuff that doesn't make sense in the
Mhm.
world.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, it's unfortunate that people like you have to exist, people like me have to exist in this space
Yeah.
because not enough people want to truly understand. Like, no one's ever
Yeah.
going to understand what an addict does. You're never going to
And
understand as a normie.
everybody wants kind of like this simple explanation, and that's enough. And there is no simple explanation. And what I have seen is, you know, people who have been in addiction, they may have a simple explanation for them,
Yes.
for them, but it isn't a simple, it doesn't apply to everybody, but it sure applies to them. So, and that that movie, Anonymous People, when that came out, and this was my subjective opinion, when that came out, more and more people in recovery started being transparent and telling their stories, and that was a really big thing. And I wait for the day when family members, they are out there telling their story, because I have seen I have been to so many, like, where it's this group thing, and and someone in recovery is telling their story and their family member is off to the side just listening, and they have a story too, but that story does not get out there, and they're both important. I'm not minimizing the one to uplift the other. They're both important. So it's like this whole addiction recovery space. I'm just, I'm advocating for, hey, let's think about this differently. Let's talk about this differently. Let's take different actions, you
And I mean,
know?
that's what it takes these days. You know what I mean? Like the cookie cutter foundation of recovery. You can go to a recovery center that's 17 hours a day, very, very regimented. You have AA
Right,
4 times a
right.
day, or you can go to a place where I went to where it was more free time and, you know, be an adult, act like an adult, earn your privileges, and, kept us within a society. A lot of times these rehab centers, they seclude you from the real world,
Yeah,
with, you can't do anything but what we tell you to do, you know? And I think that's
yeah,
good for some people, right? But like as an ex-cop, that's not the kind of place I can go to. I need a place
yeah,
that allows me to still be part of a society, still have human contact in a way that is not rehab related.
yeah,
Like we would
yeah,
throw cornhole, we would barbecue at night, we would hang out and sit by the bonfire. Like, I mean, what
yeah,
people do as adults when they just want to chill out, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
So I got another question for you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. You're
So
gonna
I
say
have a question for you, and that is when you say you were an ex-cop, one of the things that I really have had a lot of respect for with police is that they have a way to kind of make a like calm down a chaotic situation. And I used to, when I lived in Colorado, I had friends that were therapists that were a part of this ride along program with police who, they would have a mental health professional in the car, and then they would go into situations and the mental health professional could have a perspective. And I heard from this friend of mine what experts police officers are to calm a situation. And I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, that is the skill for family members to learn. And so I want to ask you, you've been a cop or a police officer or whatever, you know, give me a couple, two or three things like how do they do that?
one is active listening. You have to listen. You can't just walk in there and try to take control of a situation without knowing the facts. Like a cop has to control the environment. That's a fact.
Yeah,
But there's ways to do that when you can, when it's safe,
yeah,
is to build a rapport, read the room, figure out what these people their emotional state is, try to understand their economic dynamic if you can. There's a lot of
wow,
things going on when you walk into these houses. Like say you go to a domestic
yeah,
and the guy and the girl are yelling at each other, but they're not hurting each other. They're just yelling. Your first thing is to separate them and get them to leave each other alone. But how do you do
right,
that? Do you walk in there and go, "Hey, knock it off," or do you go, "Hey guys, listen, I'm not here to arrest anybody. I just want to find out what's going on. Can you just talk to me? Listen, I need you to go over here. I need you to come with me. Let's have a conversation. Try to relate to the people." And I think,
yeah.
you
I
know,
love this, Mark.
well, I mean, it's very important to relate. A
Yeah,
lot of people think police officers just want to come in there and tell people what to do. That's not what they want to do. That's their job.
right,
Their job
right.
is to control the environment and protect people and property.
Yeah,
So when
beautiful.
you walk into a situation, officer safety, you got to make sure you can do something other than just handcuff people.
Right,
But
right,
I
right.
think, like I said, I think it's reading the room, being able to form a rapport with somebody in very short period of time. You have to be able to communicate, as in like understand how someone communicates.
Yeah,
Some guy
yeah,
may use nothing but street slang and not respond to you when you say something like, "Oh, I would like to know how you're feeling today, sir." And he's like, "Fuck you, motherfucker." Like, now you're like, "Bro, what's up? Tell me what's going on."
yeah,
You have to be able to read all these dynamics and form an opinion like that on
yeah,
how
yeah,
you're going to
yeah.
approach a situation.
And probably, use language that they're gonna understand and it's gonna make sense to them. Because if you use the wrong kinda language, you're not gonna connect with them.
And if a guy's yelling when I was on the street, if a guy's yelling at me, I'm yelling back.
Yeah,
If a guy's motherfucking me, I'm motherfucking him back.
right.
There is no law that says a cop can't tell somebody to shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
You know, is it the right thing to do? Depends on the situation.
yeah.
If you got
It's
somebody
all the
that's
context.
if you got somebody that's super like emotionally elevated through the fucking roof and he's losing his fucking mind and you're like, "Dude,
Yeah,
calm the fuck down." And he's
Right.
like, you know, other than like, "Sir, please stop. Sir, please stop."
Yeah.
So,
Right.
there's different circumstances for different approaches, and I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing that the cops are suffering in today is they're being, you know, they're being pampered when they're in the
Yeah.
academy. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. When you get out there, just try to be nice, try to be nice, try to be nice. It's like, yeah, be nice until you don't have to be nice anymore, you know? And I think that's a skill that people are born with inherently. So there's a lot of cops out there that can't adjust their approach on the fly. And
Right.
I think as a mental health professional, as a rehab specialist, what you're doing, you have to be able to read the room. You have to understand where people are coming from emotionally, where they're coming from financially,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that has a lot to, people don't think so, but financial has a ton to do with a lot of police calls. You know,
Okay.
you got a family that's got 7 kids and they're barely scrapping by. You're probably going to be there a lot more than you're going to go to Joe and Mary's house over there to have a fucking $1 million house and they both live in a different wing and never
Right.
see each other, right? But
Yeah.
I appreciate that question. I want to ask you one.
Yeah.
Social media, the fucking devil. How does social media affect what you're trying to do?
Mark, I don't know how to answer that question.
That's
I
fine.
Yeah, I really don't know. I um I don't like social media, and I think for, many, many years I just tried to avoid social media. Like, I initially got into it and followed what I thought was the rules, and it just seemed very imagey to me, and I didn't like that. And now I have this message that I believe can change the way we think about addiction, and how family members can actually become stronger than the addiction. And they're the ones who are in the first role to really be able to make change. Not all the time, but a lot of times. And so I have this message, and I know at some point I'm going to die, and I would like to leave a legacy, and that's the legacy. And I realized for me to come anywhere near this, I need to learn social media. And so I'm still in the background here, kind of like I have this angst and this whiny voice. Why do you ask that question? Like, that's
Because,
interesting.
doing what I do with a podcast, right? So I see a lot of stuff in my feeds for recovery, addiction, sobriety, and there's a lot of people out there that are full of shit.
Yeah,
They're full of shit. They want to sell a product, they want to sell a magazine or a book, or they want to sell their supplement line, or they want to teach you how to get sober. Like,
right.
they act like they just reshaped the wheel and invented something
Yeah,
amazing. So there's a lot of false prophets in
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
on
And
on social media. I hate social media myself. I can't stand it. The only reason I do it is because of the podcast. That's it.
so, Mark, I have a book coming out later this month in December, and hopefully before Christmas. So,
Put it
yeah,
out there. Tell people what it is.
uh, well, the name of the book is Rethinking Addiction, and the subtitle is The New Family Recovery Solution.
Coming out in the
And
coming out in the near future, right?
yeah, hopefully before Christmas, I should get a hard copy in a week to actually do final edits, which I've done final edits for the last freaking month,
Well, I
which
see
I
what you did
thought,
there. I see what you did there. I
what
was
did I
talking
do?
about false prophets, and then you promoted your book, but you knew you could do it because I like what you're talking about, so it's okay.
Well, yeah, and so I mean, some people are going to hear me as a false prophet. Like, who does this guy think he's kidding? You
I
know?
think that the difference between you and a false prophet on social media is you can explain why you do what you do, and you can explain what you're doing. It makes sense, right? The
Yeah,
false prophets are the ones that tell you like, "Oh, don't go to AA. I can cure your drinking." Bullshit. You're full of shit because addiction recovery starts with the individual and the individual figuring out why they drink.
right.
If
Yeah,
you don't have that, you don't stay sober. At least not happy and sober. You could be a dry drunk the rest of your life. I choose not to be a dry drunk. Listen, I'm a narcissist. I'm a cocky prick. I got a big mouth. I swear a lot. My wife hates me half the time, but that's
And
who I am.
yeah, but Mark, is there another side of you too? Or
Yeah, there's the soft side. There's a lot more to me now that I'm sober than there was before. Because what I
so
was
it's
before was an angry person that was upset and drank all the
right,
time.
yeah. So it's like hard on the outside, soft on the inside, maybe. That's a generalism that may not be true all the time, but and then there's people who are soft on the outside and hard on the inside, and I may be closer to that kind of person.
I mean,
I
people
don't
may
know,
call me
but
a false prophet, but all I'm doing is talking about my life and the mistakes that I've made.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? So if people want to say that I'm a false prophet and then I don't know who I am, yeah, listen, my phone number is 724-759-8600. Steel City Roundtable@gmail.com. Steel City Roundtable Podcast.com. Reach out to me. I'll bring you on the show and you can tell me how full of shit I am. But and I think that's a beautiful thing about this podcast space and in this recovery space that we're in is that people with the righteous motivations, the genuine motivation to try to help other people. Like I don't care if I make an ass out of myself if it stops somebody from putting a bullet in their head. You know, and you don't mind explaining what you're doing, and you don't mind doing something different and being questioned like I questioned you because you have
Yeah,
confidence in what you're doing and you believe in what you're doing. These false prophets on social media, they don't believe in what they're doing. They may preach
yeah,
mental health and then go home and beat their kids. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Like I have a friend
Well,
that's in that kind of situation. His his
you know,
his his ex is very, very big in social media, but she treats her entire family like shit.
so So, Mark, when I started doing this, started working with the family first, I did this with a friend who was a therapist. And I did it as a coach, and I started working with her family. She had three daughters. All of them were in their own drug or alcohol thing, but one was living. I mean, she was couch surfing, doing heroin and all of that kind of stuff. Everybody was scared for her. She eventually showed up to online Zoom family meetings, and she eventually got off of heroin with an amino acid. And it's like I know this shit works. And the being transparent, the other thing I can say is that daughter, she eventually, did the medically assisted treatment thing with morphine because she found out that her mom was friends with me, and therefore, she didn't want to do something. Like she thought like I was pushing her mom's agenda or something. And her mom doesn't know anything about, you know, the biochemical the biochemical repair.
Well, I
So,
appreciate what you're doing because you're approaching this from a different angle. And I
and
listen, revolutionaries are everywhere.
yeah,
The people that want to go outside the box and figure it out. Hey, you're helping people. I applaud you.
well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on your podcast. And, you know, initially you said, hey, Jeff, this will be about a 30-minute conversation. And, we could talk for a while.
Definitely. We can talk. We can have you back on again. We can talk about some other stuff. I can sit there and put you over the coals again and ask you all kinds of weird questions. Um, but listen, before we cut out this, we're just over an hour. What do you want to say to the people that are watching and listening? Little nuggets of wisdom, information you want to give them, maybe put out your social medias, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. And, you know, just in a general way, like, first, a message to families who've had a family member who've been in and out of treatment over and over and over again. And it's like there is hope, and it starts with rethinking what's going on and making some new choices, some new decisions. And, I can be helpful in that process. And, the other thing too, individuals who are in still, going back and forth, having times of using drugs or alcohol and being sober. What I want to say, there is hope. There is people like Mark who have gone through this, who is, I'm sure, happy to talk to people. And, there's things like AA who people don't bullshit in there. That's one thing I know for sure. And that is a huge gift. So there is hope, regardless of what stage of this process you're in or what role you're in. There is hope, but it takes rethinking your situation. Surround yourself with people that can help you do that.
Well, once again, Jeff, I appreciate you because you're doing something different. You're trying to help people in a way that I think is it's got something to it. I like the fact that you're addressing the family need, which is something that is not really addressed as much as it should be. So keep doing what you're doing. Once again, this is Jeff Jones. He is with the Let's say it again. Family Recovery.
The Family Recovery Solution.com
And what's
is
the name of your book?
and the book is Rethinking Addiction, the New Family Recovery Solution, and that'll be out by Christmas.
Family members of addicts, if you need some help, you want to figure out if you're doing the right things or if you can change some things to help that person you're trying to save, get a hold of Jeff. I'm sure he'll respond to you as quick as he can. Once again, this is a Steel City Roundtable. The motto, as always, is share, help, repeat. Share your stories and experiences to help others and do it as much as you can. We love you. Thank you very much.